Okay everyone, so welcome back. So now we're going to be covering the tutorial about how to push back the airplane, start it up, taxi, take off, climb, all that good stuff. Now I am running slightly a little bit behind time today, so I'm pretty much quite eager to get going. Now obviously before I go ahead and do all my pre-flight before start items, just want to make sure that all my doors are closed and we are clear of external devices. That's the ground crew for that when they get on. Like I say, there might, if using something like FS to crew, that might be, I think that is an option, but for me today I am using GSX. And now just in case you don't have something like that, then there is a pushback feature available with this airplane. All you simply need to go is to pushback, enter the applicable data like so, and you're good to go. But I'm going to make sure that we're on the takeoff page here like so, and I'm just going to go through my before start items. So I don't know why oh no, I was just wondering why I did not turn on the forward pump there for the APU operation. That's because I got centre tank fuel. But still, it doesn't matter now because we need to turn on all the fuel pumps like so. So all the fuel pumps are on. And at this stage here as well, I just want to make sure that I've got enough fuel. So we have 20.1. Minimum fuel required today is 19.6. We plan for 20.1. I always put in a little bit more to take into account the APU. I've had to put a little bit more in anyway today because I knew I would be on the ground for a little bit because we're doing this tutorial. I also want to make sure that the packs are off, which they are, and the bleeds are good, which they are. Hydraulics are good for the B system for the brakes. Alright, that's great. So we can do the before start items. So fuel pumps, they are all set. Passenger signs, they are on. Windows, not functional, but they are locked. I'll also turn off my EFBs here as well, help save a little bit with the performance. MCP, that's set for takeoff. So we have 149 on the speed, applicable for the V2. Our heading is 274, and unrestricted climb 35,000 feet. Takeoff thrust. Takeoff thrust today, we're going to be using a D rate of 50. And the takeoff speeds, V1 is 138, rotation 145, and the V2 149. V2 plus 20 is 169, assuming 170. And like I say, that's very important for the climb out, and I'll explain that to you once we get rolling. CDU pre-flight, that is complete, or the MFC pre-flight, whatever you want to call it. Rudder and aileron trim, I've already checked those, they are 3 and 0. I always end up checking those when we set up the comms panel anyway. Taxi takeoff briefing. Yeah, we've already we've discussed the taxi briefing. I'll discuss the takeoff briefing once we get rolling. And the next thing now is just the below line items, so I'll give ground a call and we'll ask for push clearance. Ground, Tomjet 24 Mike, we're ready for push off, stand 6.
Tomjet 24 Mike, stand 6, push and start approved, face to south.
Push start approved off 6, face to south, 24 Mike. Right, okay, so we're good to go. I will ask GSX to do their thing. Now, it probably is going to ask us for de-icing treatment. I'm not going to go through that today. I'll go through. I'll upload another tutorial explaining all about that. I don't want to overcomplicate things today. Like I say, I've already checked the wings anyway. It's not functional on this plane. There's no ice on them, so we should be fine. Even so, to be cautious, I'd probably still get de-iced. But like I say, we'll just skip over that today. We'll be absolutely fine.
Hello, Captain. We are ready for pushback.
Right, as am I. So now what we can do is we can do the below line items. So I will lock the cockpit door, and another thing here as well, if you are using GSX de-icing, keep in mind, you should go ahead and get that and then ask for clearance for push, because it could take a while depending on some airports, because I've waited about 10-15 minutes before for that entire process to be completed. So yeah, next thing we'll do now is I'm going to turn on my anti-collision lights. So I'll just wait for the ground crew to do their thing. Now, also, if you want to do so as well, some airlines will do this. They will go ahead and set up their clock so they can record their entire block time. For me, I like to just do the flight time. So we'll do that. Right, we'll release the brakes and we'll get rolling.
Commencing push. Due to icing conditions, please stand by for engine start until push completed and brakes.
Right, I'm just going to ignore them and I'm just going to go ahead and start up the engines now, because otherwise we're going to be here all day. So very simply, in order to engage the start on the engines, what you want to do is you want to flick it to GRD. The way you start engines on the 737 is you start it 2, then 1. So left click on the switch right here to put it to GRD. And voila, start valve is open. What you want to do is you want to make sure that your N2 is coming up, which it is. EGT should equal your TAT or your OAT, which is, that's good. M1 should start slowly coming up as well. And you also want to observe the oil pressures coming up here as well, like so. And at 24%, introduce your fuel, like so. Give it about 10 seconds or so. Within that 10-second frame, you should get positive fuel flow indications, which we have here. EGT's coming up, which it should do. So is the M1. Oil temperature start coming up shortly, and the oil pressure continue to increase with the N2 as well. You should also see at some point the oil quantity start to go down. In this airplane it reads in percentage. Some airplane reads in quarts, but either way, a percentage or well, like I say, what the actual indicator does, it actually measures how much oil is in the actual tank, and it's quite normal to see that go down because said oil is actually gone into the engine itself. It's circulating through the engine, so that's quite normal. Right, and about 18% the starter will cut out, at which point the engine's good. I'll flick it over to continuous, like so. So I'll go ahead and we'll start engine number 1. Now, one of the good things about starting engine 2 on the Boeings is that it powers, well, like I say, got the engine pump for the B system. And the B system also, I believe, controls the flaps. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to select them to full. So I like to do a full cycle on those for the first flight of the day. Because obviously I don't want to get to Palma and find out I can't get flaps 30 or something like that. And I've been a bit distracted there, so I'm a bit late introducing the fuel here like so. But just in case that should happen, don't worry about it. The engine should still power up just fine. So we'll just wait for number 1 to come online there like so. And like I say, normally you would also ask ground for the clearance to pressurise as well. When I say pressurise, I mean the hydraulics. Right, so they're going off to 40. Right, that's good. I'll go flaps 5. So that's 1, 2, 5. That's fabulous. And starter should cut out now. Oh, it already has. Put that over to continuous here as well. I'm happy for the ground crew to disconnect so they can do their thing. Right, generator number 1 is good, generator number 2 is good, and then what you want to do here is just flick them on like so. Like I say, if you are doing a short takeoff procedures, you are meant to leave the APU on. Yet again, I'll explain about that in another tutorial. But in the meantime, we don't need that, so APU comes off with the bleed. I'll also get the packs on, bring the hydraulics to on here as well, and I'll put the igniter over to the left hand side. And as you can see there, because the engine's already started, Pro Heat has already come on, I'm just going to flick that to on though. Like I say, you can leave it on auto, but I want to put it to on like so. Right, a few other checks we do need to do now. Checks. We'll need to put the auto brakes into RTO, and I just wait until the ground crew are clear before I start doing the flight control checks. Because also the ground crew are clear as well, we can turn off the wheel well lights for them as well. We're just about to go into a night environment, but so normally I'd turn on stuff like the wing and the mogo lights, but I'll leave it for the time being. Right, thank you very much. So we'll do some flight control checks. I'll go full up. Now, on this particular airframe, and because of the yoke I have, I don't do full deflection. I just go near there. So, but still, one of the main purposes of flight control check is to ensure that your body is not interfering within the flight controls in any way. On some airplanes, like I say, if it's fly-by-wire, you would know if there's an issue with the flight controls, so that's not really one of the purposes of doing the flight control check at this stage. You're just checking to make sure you've got full freedom movement. But relative with that, it's still good practice to bring up the flight control synoptics page to check to make sure they are working correctly. And also, I just want to point out a slight error that I do have with this airplane, is that sometimes the rudder, according to the page here, may not centralise itself correctly. It's doing so today, but sometimes it can stick. So say if I'm just apply a little bit left rudder now, it can stick to the left, but if I take the page off, put it back on, then it's fine. And this is why I do recommend having a yaw damper on. And for me, I do find that my rudders do play up a bit, so that's one of the reasons I do have a yaw damper gauge on. Right, so I'll set the page up how I want to do so. So I'll go engine systems, hydraulic systems are good. Engines there looking good, fuel's looking good, there's no imbalance. I'll get my weather radar on, so I'll go auto, WXT, get it on here like so. You want to make sure that your ground crew are clear when you do that. Turn that on there as well.
Go around, wind shear ahead.
Right, while that's doing that, we can have the before taxi checks. So you want to make sure that your generators are on, which they are. You want to make sure that your probe heat is on, which they are as well, that's good. Anti-icing, turn that on as required. Isolation valve, you want to make sure that is auto in the closed position. Engine start selectors, start switches as they're called, I keep forgetting what you call those, on the continuous position, which they are. Recall, you want to go ahead and check that. So we do have an issue here, it's just with the aircon. And to be brutally honest with you, I had this on yesterday's flight, but it doesn't seem to cause too many issues. It might just be a slight bug at the moment with PMDG, I honestly don't know. But that's totally fine, like I say, got good pressure in the system. So we'll just skip over that. like I say. But yeah, like I say, I did do a route with KLM yesterday from Amsterdam to Manchester, and I did have that problem as well. I think it's, yeah, just ignore it. Auto brakes, they're RTO, engine start selectors, they are at idle, as I call them the engine start levers. And ground equipment, that is clear, so we're all good to taxi. Now, before we get clearance to get taxiing, just a few things I want to talk to you about with this airplane. Now, standard taxi speed in this aircraft is 20 knots. That being said, you can go up to 30 knots if you're on a straighter bit of taxiway. Now, ideally when it comes to turns, you want to take them at 10 knots. For me here at Manchester, I like to keep my speed around about 15 knots, and I always like to slow up for the turns because usually about 90 degrees. If it's a less sharper sort of turn, maybe about 20 or 30 degree turn, then yeah, you could keep about 20 knots. But then, like I say, for me, I always like to play it safe where possible and try and take the turn at 10 knots. In terms of braking, avoid differential braking where you can. Like I say, if you're going from 20 knots to 10 knots for a turn, then apply brakes for 10 knots and try and avoid braking as much as possible, because you don't want to heat up your brakes, obviously, for obvious reasons. So yeah, let's go ahead and we'll get taxiing here. Subject 24 Mike, ready for taxi.
Subject 24 Mike, taxi holding point Mike 1, runway 23 right.
They're giving us Mike 1.
Papa, Kilo and Juliet.
Lima Papa Kilo Juliet for Mike 1, subject 2 for Mike. And just to ask, is there any possibility we can get departure from Juliet? Because it's just what I planned for today.
Subject 24 Mike, A firm, and you can go to homing point Juliet 1 by the same route.
Okay, same route, we'll hold short at Juliet 1. Thank you very much, subject 2 for Mike. Yeah, that's a very weird thing I do have to admit, because at the moment taxiway Juliet is blocked where all the 737 Maxes are parked. I just didn't know if they were still there at all, but I don't really want to be editing all my performance data. But you know, if you're on VATSIM, you can very kindly ask, and oftentimes they'll oblige, which, like I say, is really nice. All right, so let's get going. Always want to try and use as minimum power as possible. Sometimes you'll taxi on idle fine, but other times you need a little bit of power to get rolling, as you can see here, like so. Also like to just do a quick check as well, make sure the brakes are working, which they are. I like to do it just as I'm setting off. So in terms of the route today here at Manchester, I know it like the back of my hand. I don't even need to look at the charts because I know what I'm doing. So we can expect departure today from Juliet 1. So relative with that, hopefully we can get a rolling departure. Now what will actually happen for the takeoff procedures is when I'm ready, I'll advance departure about 40-50% M1, make sure everything's stable, at which point I'll hit toga.
Manchester ground, very good afternoon to you.
Relative with that, now we'll come up for a turn here. We can
Airbus A319 information X-ray would like clearance to Palma de Mallorca, please.
Oh, they're also going to Palma with us as well. How very nice.
359 Manchester ground, cleared Palma de Mallorca via San Bernardino.
Yeah, you see, this is one of the things you do have to watch out for. Now, I'm definitely going to slow down here as well, avoid differential braking. Yep, that's fine. Keep about 24% power in.
Okay, we are cleared to Palma de Mallorca via
but I'll just wait until they've finished talking and I'll explain the tail procedures again.
7612 for easy 359, thank you.
Easy 359, read that correct, report ready, push and start.
Roger, we'll report room ready for push and start, easy 359.
So what I was saying, yeah, with the takeoff procedures, like I say, 40-50% initially, once stabilised, hit toga, you want to make sure your power set roughly before 60 knots. In my experience, it sets it just in time, so all very good. You want to keep a little bit of forward pressure on your control column till about 80 knots, at which point you will then release it. Your hands on the throttle till you get to V1, at which point take them off. At rotation speed, you want to look for a rotation rate of about 2 to 3 degrees per second. This airplane will get off the ground at about 8 degrees, initially looking for 15. Obviously, once airborne, I keep about 15 degrees for a few hundred feet before then following the flight director. Obviously, then if you've got positive climb, you want to bring your gear up as needed. And then once you are airborne, what you want to do then is you really want to be looking for your V2 plus 20 speed, which usually, depending on the airplane's weight, it will vary, but oftentimes I usually hit that about 1,000 feet AGL. So at which point, once I'm at 1,000 feet AGL and I've reached the V2 speed, I'll go flaps 1, just before the thrust will come back to climb power for the noise abatement, obviously. And then obviously just before we hit 3,000 feet, it should start to increase. Well, I say 3,000 feet AGL, so roughly it's about 3,200 feet, at which point the speed tape should advance to 250. And the power should increase here as well. And relative to that, you want to make sure that you are in a full flaps up configuration for 3,000 feet AGL. Like I say, if you are very light, then you are going to exceed that. Like I say, you will pass 3,000 feet before you can get all the flaps up, in which case don't worry about it. Just try your best to do it with the speed, and then as...
No further ATC, unfortunately. Policy Unicom 122.8, have a good flight.
Unicom 122.8, Tomjet 24 Mike, thank you very much, bye-bye. Right. So, yeah, obviously, in terms of getting... in terms of the flat retraction on this airplane, obviously once at 1,000 feet, AGL at 170 knots, you don't put them from flaps 5 to flaps 2, you go straight up to flaps 1. Relative with that, like I say, I then wait for the, which is ever earlier, either 2,900 feet to ensure I can get the flaps up for 3,000 feet, or until the speed tape indicates 250 knots. Usually it's about 2,900 feet, I'll put the airplane into a clean configuration. But like I say, if you're very lightweight, then you're going to climb like mad, then it's going to be a bit tricky to get the airplane fully configured for that. Now, if you've got any turns straight after departure, then what you want to do is you want to keep your V2 plus 20 speeds, and then wait until you complete the turn to complete your cleanup. Right, now I'm just going to stop here for a second whilst we just complete the before takeoff items. In real life, I'm probably just gone through a whole load of company 737 Maxes. Right, so the before takeoff items, I want to make sure the cabin crew are seated, so I'll just say that over the PA. Cabin crew seats for takeoff, please. Cabin crew take seats for takeoff. Okay, so they are seated. I want to make sure that my engine bleeds are set, which they are. Flaps, they are set 5 degrees, green light. Stab trim, that is set. It's 4.8, so it's just nearly on 5, so that's fine. Flight controls, they are checked. Cabin, we'll assume is secure. Packs, those are on. Weather radar, that is on as well. And I'll just say that we are now departing on that sim. Manchester traffic, Tomjet 24 Mike will be departing runway 23 right, Sanborn Romeo. Actually, I've just seen now on VATtastic, and it's a very helpful tool to have that there's currently traffic on final. So I'm just actually going to wait for them. I'll tell you what though, I'll just turn on my transponder, just see if I can see him. Actually, no, I'll wait for traffic. Manchester traffic, Tomjet 24 Mike will line up and wait after landing his jet A320. Right. So, yeah, that's one of the things you do have to take into consideration here. So we'll just wait until that traffic's landed, and then we'll line up behind them. Like I say, it's something you do have to be a bit careful about. But I'll just take you all the way up to the start bars now, and then of course we do have the below the line items, which are landing strobes and transponders, but because we are waiting for traffic, I'll just leave them off for the time being. And obviously I don't want to have the transponder on, because TCAS will be going mental, I think. But still, the traffic's only here as well, so we can just have a nice slow crawl up to the runway. Now, I should actually point out, even though this is the departure I do fly the most of, it's the one that I do find most tricky, because not only am I having to configure the airplane for flight once airborne, I have to make that turn, which is easier said than done. So what I'm probably going to do as well is I'll probably stick the autopilot on once I've started to get into the turn. Now, normally I don't do that, I usually wait until a little bit later, because I enjoy flying this airplane manually, and like I said, I don't really mind the fact that I have 1 or 2 issues with setting everything. You know, 1 or 2 issues with probably like going off course and stuff like that. Because, like I say, I'm not going off course majorly, so it's fine. But now, considering I'm doing a tutorial today, I will flick the autopilot on just so I can explain a few of the items a bit more. I just really wanted to say that it's a little bit abnormal for me though. Right, so we're just about to enter the runway here as well. TCAS, well, transponder even, TARA. Lights will come to on. I also like to turn off the, actually no, I'll leave the tax lights on actually, and I'll turn on the strobes here as well. And I want to make sure the wheel well lights are off as well, because sometimes I do forget to turn them off relative for the ground crew. Alright, we'll wait till the traffic gets clear, but in the meantime, I'll start the clock. Wow, they've used some runway, haven't they? Actually, no, I will not start the clock, because the initial plan was I wanted to do a rolling takeoff. We can't do that, no matter. Put the airplane here. Oh wow, they're already off. Right, so that's good, that's good, that's good. Right, I'll start the clock. Let's go to Palma. Right, so 40-50% M1. Nice traffic, Tom 24 Mike, departing 23 right. Right, that's good. Toga. There we go, making sure I keep forward pressure on. Obviously we'll get a few autopilot modes coming up there. So power set, airspeed alive. And that before 60 knots, that's good. Approaching 80 knots, release forward pressure. 100 knots, you want to cross check the speeds. Just told that should get after 80 knots as well.
V1.
There's a V1 call, hands off the throttle. Rotate, start rotating. There we go. Nice slow rotation there, looking for 15 degrees. There we go. Hold that attitude and we have positive climb. We'll bring the gear up and that is LNAV. Now, we should surely get thrust ref and VNAV speed, or in this case thrust hold. Yeah, that's good. And already we've reached the V2 plus 20 speed. I'll wait till 1,000 feet above, so 1,200 feet. I'll use a little bit of trim to help us out here. Quite happy with this attitude. Right, there we go. We'll call flaps 1. And we'll shortly start the turn off to the right hand side. I think you can actually engage the autopilot on this airplane once you're 400 above ground level. I even know some airlines that do actually have that as a procedure. I do think to turn on the autopilot quite soon in flight. Right, I'll also put the auto brakes to off. I'm going to put the gear to off here as well. And even though I really don't want to hand fly this thing, I'm going to put the autopilot on, so left command alpha. So you see there, the power's gone slightly a bit back. It should shortly start to increase, coming up on 2,900 feet. Like so, I want to go into a full clean configuration. I see the airplane's accelerating there. That's good. So we'll go into a full clean. Oh my goodness, what's the airplane doing here? Right, well I'll tell you what, I'm just going to go heading select. And we'll try and intercept... Actually, I don't know what the autopilot's doing here. That's really quite peculiar. Right, well I'll tell you what, we'll just hold the current heading. Like so, and then we'll try and intercept the radial from Torby. So if we tell the autopilot we'd like to go direct Torby, or Tably, whatever it's called, why am I calling it that? Right, so we'll engage LNAV again, so the airplane will start to follow that, just in case you didn't know what the LNAV mode did. So, it's banking a bit to the right. Right, so, alright, there we go, it's getting back on course. Right, so we can carry out a few other things here as well. Now, because I think we are shortly about to go into clouds, I'll activate anti-icing procedures. Very simple with this, you want to make sure that first your engine switches here, whatever they're called, because I've honestly forgot, are in continuous. Then you want to flick them on like so. Now, when it comes to the wing anti-ice, heads up with that. Because normally what happens, I think, is you do actually need to visually confirm if there's any ice build up on the leading edge before you switch those on. But for me, I just like to play it safe and I'll turn them on. Right, and the airplane should start to be climbing here, and it's not, so I'll just stick it on like so. Why is this not climbing? Oh, I just hit a bit of a lag spike here, no problem. Right, okay. There we go, I'll just put that in like so. So now the power should advance to climb, and she should start climbing. Like I say, I've never actually turned on the autopilot using this before, but as you can see here, she is struggling a bit. But no matter, I'll tell you what we'll do, we'll just go to Samba. She should sort herself out nicely, and I'll put it back on LNAV. So yeah, that's the anti-icing procedure with that. Also something else I'll do as well, if this is one of the reasons I wanted to have these set of landing lights on, is as soon as I'm airborne, like when I'm putting the gear to off, I'll also put these two up and off as well, because they cause drag on the airframe. I'll also turn off my taxi lights as well, because obviously we don't need them. And obviously, usually by this stage here as well, obviously we've passed the transition altitude, so I'll put it to standard. And obviously by this stage here as well, what some airlines would actually do is they'd put the start selectors to off, and they'd turn off the landing lights here as well. For me, I like to subscribe to the 10,000 feet rule, so I'll turn off the landing lights at 10,000 feet. I'll also put the engine control modes to off. But then, considering this time of year, there's oftentimes a little bit of bad weather, so I usually have to leave the anti-icing on for a little bit longer, so obviously I have to leave the engines on continuous for a little bit longer, obviously. So yeah, that's pretty much it. It is quite easy to do, like I say. Obviously there's quite a lot of work to do, but still I do find it very, very fun indeed. I'll also make sure that the cabin is pressurising nicely, which it is. That's good. Packs are good. Anti-ice, like I say, we'll leave on, and considering it's also going a bit dark, I'm going to turn up some of my lights here as well. And why not? I'll flick on the logo and the wing lights. That's why I also have wing lights as well, so you can actually see the leading edge in nighttime conditions. Right, so like I say, at the moment we are looking good. So we passed through 10,000 feet, which should shortly happen now as the airplane's altitude should go down a bit to allow the speed to increase. Now, because we are through 10,000 feet, I'll turn off the landing lights and the turn-offs. That's good. Now, in regards of what the autopilot's doing at the moment, we're currently on M1, which means it's going to follow the engine climb speed. Obviously, take note of the fact that on this airplane, the anti-ice is, well, it comes from the bleed air system. So if we were to actually turn it off, it should actually increase performance a tad, as you can see there. So that's something you do have to take in consideration. Of course, on the actual descent page as well, when you are descending, it does ask, are you using anti-ice on the descent? So it has to take that into account with performance. But at the moment we're on M1, so the power is remaining at climb power. And the pitch is adjusting to look for the 290 knots. So now we're at 290 knots, the airplane is going to climb an appropriate altitude. Like I say, you can still get the same result if you went to level change for 290 knots. But I'm just going to leave it on LNAV and VNAV, of course, just in case you don't know what they are. LNAV means you're going to be following your lateral path here, this pink magenta line, and VNAV means you're going to be following your vertical path, and of course that works with the auto throttle here as well. And then of course on this airplane we do actually have 4 autopilot computers. We have the command one, we also have CWS. CWS I believe controls 2 axes. I honestly can't remember what they are. I think it controls the when you actually engage CWS, I think you do actually have control of your attitude. So you've got pitch control. I honestly can't remember with that because I very rarely use it now, but command obviously controls all 3 axes, so that's what you should engage. Obviously I'm pilot flying, so I'll engage the Alpha one. Obviously it was the FO flying, they would engage the B1 as per necessary. Now, oh, it does this sometimes. But no, we're fine for traffic, looking fantastic. Right, now at the moment, because we are in the climb, if we head over here to our climb page, it gives us some very helpful information here, like so. So for us it's saying the airplane's climb up to 35,000 feet, which is good. This here gives us our speed, so just in case you want to change that, you can put it in. So let's just say you wanted 300 knots, type in 300, hit execute, and the aircraft will do what it needs to do to get up to that speed. So look, now the vertical speed's coming down to help us achieve that speed. But I'm just going to put it back to 290 like so. Like I say, any speed restriction you can stick that in like so. I'm going to put it back to Econ here. Econ obviously stands for economy. You'll also see that in the cruise here as well. You've got an option for Econ and LRC. Some 737 pilots refer to the LRC as the go fast mode, but it very rarely, but it's only by a couple knots if that, if it does sort of say that. Relative with that as well, in regards to the Econ mode, oftentimes, well, you're always going to be using that by default. It often has you cruising anywhere between Mach decimal 7.3 to 7.5. And like I say, LRC sometimes only, and like I say, will only increase it to about Mach decimal 7.7. So usually only by about 0.01 or 0.02 Mach. We'd only usually ever do it by. And like I say, you also have options here for max rate of climb, max angle. I don't ever like to use that. But still it's there if you want it. And it says here too, flight level 350 will achieve top of climb at 1624 Zulu and in 81 miles. You've also got procedures here for engine out, just in case you lose an engine. And you've got RTA there, just in case you should want to use that like so. Yeah, again, if we head over to the climb page here like so, as I was discussing earlier here as well, it says here the optimum flight level is 370. So what I'm probably going to do now is I'm probably going to coordinate going up to there. So it's pretty much the same sort of procedure whether or not you're climbing or you're cruising if you want to go to a higher level. So I just wanted to see the options for going up to 370, and as you can see there we have the option to go to LRC, at which point that changed Mach decimal 781, but now you see there there's very little difference, so I'll just leave it back on Econ. So if you want to go a bit higher, put in your desired level and step there, and it's going to give you some relative information for that. So fuel saving is 3.7. And step point 1624, 76 nautical miles. So if you want to go ahead and activate, we can do that. So I'm going to put in 370. Like I say, when climbing high, you want to make sure that your pressurization is set accordingly. So I'll put it to 370. It's only going to be a 2-hour flight plan today, so I will not go any higher than that. And I think we have a message here with the fuel. We've used all the fuel in the centre tank, so we'll go ahead and turn those off. Slight little bit of an imbalance here as well, so I'm just going to sort that out now. Yeah, again, that's also something you want to keep be a bit mindful of. If there's any fuel imbalance, it's not really an imbalance. If it was a major problem, then you would get a warning on your. You would get a warning about it. But we don't have one, so you know it's nothing major. But still, I always like to make sure that we have equal fuel in both tanks. Now, for me, when I am doing this, I will always pay attention to it because I always do it on the 747, where I'll just where I'm meant to do it to fuel tank to engine. So the way it works on the 747 is number 1 tank's meant to feed number 1, 2 is meant to feed number 2, 3 is meant to feed number 3, etc. But I always end up leaving it on too long, creates a few issues. So I always pay attention now when I'm trying to balance fuel out. Right, click on the fuel pumps back to on now, and I'll close the valve. Now, the valve's in operation and it's shut. Fuel temp's still good. Let's see. Right, and I think we're also a little bit clear of the weather. I'll still leave the anti-icing on just for a little bit, but still, what was I talking about earlier? Yes. This here, so it's saying 370, so 370 is in on the FMC, 370 is up here, like so, and I'll also need to change it here as well. So 370, I'll hit altitude intervene. So the airplane knows that's where we'd like to go up to today. So, yeah, like I say, loads of helpful information on the FMC, like so, and yeah, so many niche things you can actually do with it. So this here is the hold information, so just in case AC has to go into a hold, put it in like so and enter all the applicable information in like so. Obviously got your RMP information there as well. And one limit, so just in case you wanted to set it from here, you can do that. And obviously you've got stuff here like your approach, reference information and all that, etc. Fixed information here as well. Normally on these short-haul flights, I don't usually do fixed information. If I am doing ETOPS, then I will put in the applicable information for that. But still, I'll put that information in when we are actually going to be going into Palma. So, so yeah, that's really what the FMC does. Obviously, we do have a few other things that we can do with the airplane. So, if you do actually have a new waypoint that air traffic control asks you to go to, so let's just assume in this case it's the London VOR. What you want to do is you want to do it like this. So if you say at the moment I'm doing 24 miles, consider at London VOR, you want to put it in like so. And then just bring up the information as per necessary after this. You see that we've got a bit of an error, but I'm just going to override it here like so, put Henry back in. And then of course when you are doing something like that, it does give you the option here as well. I'll just do that again just to show you, to change your inbound course radials and stuff like that. So London, it says there intersection course 142, so if you want to change it to like, I don't know, something like 180, then you can do so, but I'll not do that today. I'll just put it back in there like so. So yes, we still potentially could come into some weather here. Like I say, I'm just a bit oblivious to them clouds. Just in case you're unfamiliar how icing conditions work, quite simply, in this particular airplane, if your TAT reads plus 10 degrees or below and you're in visible moisture, you need to engage anti-icing procedures. So on and so forth. But yes, everyone, that is pretty much how you climb the airplane out. And also just one of the things that I also want to show you here as well, which I should have showed you when I'm on the ground. But just in case you wanted to navigate towards a radial, there are times where I do need to put certain radials in. So let's just assume we need to head off to Honolulu radial 2. I'll tell you what, we'll put in 180 at 17 miles. Then what you want to do is you want to put it in like this. And then voila, it brings up a point view in the FMS. So if you want to do that, you can do. So yeah, that's pretty much everything I want to explain at this moment in time. It's just pretty much, actually, I keep forgetting certain things. Yeah, when this is more applicable for me for when I'm manually flying. I'll also engage my FPV, which pretty much shows you what the airplane's doing like so. So it shows that it's heading off to the left a bit, which is fine. So yeah. Just wanted to explain that to you there as well, and we'll just assume as well that we're going out of icing conditions. So in that situation, turn all of them off, and above flight level 100 I'll put the engine switches here to off as well, and we can also turn the seatbelt signs off as well. Yeah, again, airline procedures can dictate this. So yes, everyone, we should look like we have plain sailing all the way to Palma now. That has been the taxi, climb out, and essentially cruise tutorial. I'll next get back to you with the descent tutorial. So I'll speak to you in a little bit. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.